going to go ahead and get started. So welcome to another CybHER Conversation. I am Katie Shuck, and I am the Executive Outreach Director of CybHER at Dakota State University. And with me today, I have Kanthi Narukonda, who is my cohort, my partner in everything that I do with CybHER. I also have Pam Rowland, Dr. Pam Rowland, and Dr. Ashley Podorotsky, who are the co-founders of CybHER. So we're thrilled to have them along with us today too. But featuring, the reason you are all here today is Dr. Janell Straach, who is a faculty down at Rice University in Houston, Texas, and also the chair of the board for the Women in Cybersecurity, or WICYS, organization. So we are thrilled to have her here, and she's going to tell us all about her journey in just a second. But before we get started, I want to remind everyone that if you do have a question you would like to ask, please do that in the Q&A that you will find at the bottom of the screen, and Kanthi will be facilitating that Q&A period once Janell is finished with her presentation. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, Janell.
All right. Thank you very much, Katie, and thank you for inviting me to join you. So ladies, I'm here to tell you my journey, and my journey is not a straight line. So I want to first start by telling you, if you think you've got your perfect journey planned out, it never works out that way. So I want to talk to you about learning. So when you start your journey, you start when you're born. You start learning from the moment you're born. When you're a little baby, you learn about sounds and about touch and smell and reach. And that's the start of this fabulous journey that you're on. Now, my journey involved a lot of different things like work and school. I'm one of those people that I love to go to school, but I want to make money. And so throughout my life, there's been a combination. When I was 0 to 6, it was all about school, and I was learning kid stuff. And then when I was 6 to 15, I went to elementary and junior high, and I was still in school and learning stuff. Then I got to have a part-time job, and I got to get money. I learned things while I was working. And I went to high school, and I learned things there. Then I went off, and I decided to go to college, and I got a bachelor's degree. I continued to work because I still wanted that money, and I learned that I like to have money to do things. But I also learned, I want to be able to do more than just what I could do with a bachelor's. So I decided to get a master's. So I learned that, gosh, if I have a master's, I have more opportunities. So now I had this master's, and I decided I'm ready to go work full time. So now, from the age of 23 to 28, I'm working full time. Then I learned, wow, this working full-time stuff is not all that great. So I decided I'm going to go back to school because I like going to school. So now I go back to school, and here I am working part-time again. And now I decide I really do like this school thing, so I'm going to be a professor. And then I realized, well, maybe that's not what I want to do. So I decided to go back to work full-time. But gosh, I really like this school thing. So then I decide, well, maybe I'll get an MBA. So you can see that my journey has been a combination of work and school, but I was always learning. And now my journey is the best of both because I get to work in a school environment. Now, one of the things that I have had to do throughout my journey is figure out my strengths and my weaknesses. And what I have to do is separate those. I have to figure out what am I good at and what am I not so good at, because I'm not good at everything. So I'm going to let you in on a little secret. My report card from the 6th grade. Gosh, look at this all the way down here. In conduct, I got a C+ in conduct. What did I learn? I learned that talking is my strength. So what I decided is I need to do something that involves talking. So guess what? Here I am. I'm using my strength. Some people might have looked at this and said, gosh, a C+, that's devastating. No, don't look at these things as devastating. Look at them as find your strength and use it. I also figured out that everybody was going to misspell my name. People love to put this E on the end of the word Janell. I tell people we couldn't afford it. I grew up poor, so I don't have that extra E on the end of my name. So the first thing that I want to say is find your strength and then use it to your advantage. The other thing that I had to do is I had to figure out, what do I enjoy? What's important? And what am I passionate about? Now, this little picture is actually something from machine learning, because not only do I do specialization in cybersecurity, I also specialize in machine learning. And one of the things that we do in machine learning is to figure out how to cluster data. But that same thing applies in my life. So what I had to figure out is that I enjoy the beach, I enjoy vacation, I enjoy friends, I'm passionate about teaching, learning, and diversity. And the things that are important to me are faith, fairness, and laughter. So as you go through this journey, you always have to make sure you figure out what do you enjoy, what are you passionate about, and what's important. Now, I've been talking to you about learning, but unfortunately, we sometimes have to unlearn things because sometimes we learn the wrong things. So I want to talk to you a little bit about unlearning things. So here is my picture from the first grade. So in the first grade, here's this picture of all of these people. Now, if I were to look at this picture, I could make some assumptions. I could look at this picture and I could say, boys are not allowed on the top row. And I could say, only women are allowed to be teachers, because there's only women teachers in this picture. And I could say, girls must wear dresses, because all the girls in this picture are wearing dresses. But wouldn't it be a horrible world if I learned those things and then I said that had to be true forever? So I really need to unlearn what I learned from looking at this picture. So sometimes what you're going to need to do is unlearn what somebody taught you. Because what if a man looked at this picture and he really wanted to be a teacher? Just because there's only women and teachers in this picture, does that mean he can't be a teacher? No, he needs to unlearn that this picture taught him that only women can be teachers. So as you journey through and as you're thinking about your career, don't ever think that you can't unlearn something that someone has taught you. And this is something called the imposter syndrome. And a lot of times people don't want to talk about this, but I've decided to just combat this head on with you today. The imposter syndrome, what you see on the left, is that we think we know this little bitty piece and that other people know more. And that's because we've been taught things and we've learned things that aren't true. Like girls don't belong in cybersecurity, or girls aren't good at math. So we've learned the wrong things. When in reality, what the picture is what's on the right. We know a lot of things, and we're surrounded by people who know other things. So as you are journeying through life, through school, and when you're making these decisions, don't feel you're an imposter. You belong. You belong in that picture, whether you're wearing a skirt, whether you're a female or a male, and you really have to fight against this feeling like you're an imposter. You have to unlearn what someone may have taught you unconsciously. The next thing I want to talk to you about are what we call pivots. So I'm sitting in a chair right now with wheels. I could choose to pivot this way and not look at you, or I could choose to pivot this way. Guess what? When I turn this way, I'm looking at the ocean. You know why? Remember, I love the beach. So I found a way that I could work and look at the beach. So when we have choices in life, we call these pivots because we're going to make a change. And guess what? Change can be scary, but change can be exciting. And change can make us grow and pick things that really lead us to the things we want in life. Change has led me to be able to work on the beach. So I started out in a university, small school, Angelo State, that's in San Angelo, Texas. And then I had to make a decision. Was I going to go on and get a master's, or was I going to go to work? I made the decision that I would go on, and I went to a school called Texas A&M. I then had to make a decision, what am I going to do next? So I went to work for a large company called TXU Energy. I had to make another decision about what am I going to do. And that was when I decided to go back and get a PhD. I got that PhD, and if you recall, I decided, gosh, I kind of want to go back to school. So I went back to get the PhD, but then I decided I don't really want to be a full-time professor, so I went to work at IBM. While I was at IBM, I decided, gosh, I want to go back. So I had to make this pivot, to make a decision to go back to being a professor. Now, while I was there and I made that decision, I had the opportunity to start working with an organization called Women in Cybersecurity. So this pivot of a decision to go to UT Dallas led me to something that was fabulous and exciting, which was to become involved with the Women in Cybersecurity. That also led me to this point where I could have an opportunity to join Rice University, which is where I am now as a faculty member, where I continue to work with women in cybersecurity. Women in Cybersecurity is an organization that is dedicated to recruit, retain, and promote women in cybersecurity because there's not enough. Let's go back to talking about that picture in the first grade where there were only women teachers. Well, remember, men may look at that and think they don't belong. Some of that is what's going on in cybersecurity. People think of cybersecurity as only for boys or for men. It's not. It's a really cool field. It's really cool. So I have some questions for you to test whether you belong in cybersecurity. So here we go. So I want you to answer each of these, and then I'll tell you at the end whether you belong in cybersecurity or not. So first, do you like to work with people? Do you like, hang on, let me move this. Do you like to work alone? Okay. Do you prefer writing? Do you prefer talking? Do you like math? Do you prefer art? Do you like detail? Do you prefer the big picture? Do you want to be a leader? Do you prefer to not lead? Do you want to do something thrilling? Do you prefer something safe? Do you like to already program computers? Maybe you already know how to do that. Or maybe you don't, you just like to use computers. Do you like to solve problems? Or maybe you just like to create problems. So those were my questions. If you answered yes to one of these questions, then there is a job that fits you in cybersecurity. So here's what I'm going to challenge you to do. If you answered yes to just one of these questions, I want you to contact one of these ladies from CybHER. You've got their contact information, and you ask them, hey, what job fits me? And I guarantee you they will come up with the job that fits you, because there are so many different jobs in cybersecurity. A lot of people think it's all about programming and all about being a computer scientist that just writes program, and that's simply not true. There is so much in cybersecurity that you can do. So I've given you a challenge. If you answered yes, I'm going to put the workload on Katie and Canthy to say you're going to contact them, and they're going to have to come up with what's the job for you if you answered yes to one of these questions. So, being a faculty member, I love to give advice. So my advice to you is never stop learning. I still learn today. Figure out your strengths. Remember, 6th grade, I got in trouble for talking, but I figured out I'll just use that to my advantage. Now, I didn't figure that out in the 6th grade, but eventually I did. Be willing to unlearn. If someone tells you you're not good at this, don't believe them. If someone tells you girls don't do math, don't believe them. If someone tells you you should do this because that's a better career choice for a girl, don't believe them. Unlearn those things. And sometimes they don't say it to you directly. Sometimes it's very subtle, where perhaps all the pictures that you see are of men doing that job. Or all the classes you go to, there's only men or boys in there. That's very subtle, but don't believe it. Just like the picture was very subtle that all the girls were wearing dresses. Don't believe that. That doesn't mean that all girls have to wear dresses. And then my final piece of advice is embrace those pivots. Embrace the points where you can make a choice. And yeah, it's scary, but they're going to lead to some really cool things. So I want to thank you for taking some time from your day. And I think this is the point where we turn to questions. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we'll turn to questions.
Oh my God, that was awesome.
Thank you.
Such a wonderful presentation. Thank you for that.
Sure.
I already have quite a bit of questions.
Okay,
but
great.
Before we go into that, I want to tell you about what your slide about imposter syndrome means to me. I'm in the PhD program now. I'm hopefully in the last year of the program at the moment. And just now it's hitting me. I'm always surrounded by like smart people. It doesn't mean that I'm not smart, but it's just that feeling, that overwhelming feeling of, oh my God, maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe I'm not smart enough to do this. It happens to me now on a weekly basis. As I'm getting closer to the end of the program, it's starting to hit me. And I always have to like keep telling myself, it's okay, you're okay, one step at a time, just one step at a time. It's okay if you're not the smartest person, as long as you're able to finish the program, prove your worth, and do your work, you should be fine, is what I keep telling to myself. But your perspective on the imposter syndrome with the circles, that's really awesome.
Great. No, it's the imposter syndrome as well is a real thing, and I'll let you in on a secret. It still is kind of there for me. When I took this job at Rice University, I caught myself sitting in my first meeting with my fellow new faculty, and it was a lot of older men, yes, older than me, I know, I'm old, and they started throwing out technology terms. Old men, and I'm not trying to stereotype, but they love to throw out old terms, and they love to throw out, you know, tech terms and all of this. And I got very intimidated, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not as smart. I'm not smart enough. I don't belong here. And I just had to stop and go, Janell, you know a lot more about your field, and you know a lot more about teaching online, because these men had never taught online, and I had a lot of experience teaching online. And so, Kathy, you're exactly right. We just have to stop ourselves and say, you know what you're doing, you know something, they may know something else, but you know something. So yeah, it's something I think we all have to realize. We can't just ignore it. And so sometimes if we'll just admit it, and then we can catch ourselves and just say, let's just deal with it. So yeah.
Exactly. That was awesome. So now for the questions that we have one student asking, what is machine learning?
Ah, great. So machine learning is a field within artificial intelligence. So you'll hear that term. Artificial intelligence is this idea that we can make computers appear to be smart and think like humans. Machine learning is a subcategory of that, where we're taking a lot of data and trying to learn the patterns that are within that data to, again, make the computers appear to be smart. So I'll give you an example. If you shop on Amazon, you'll see that Amazon may say, hey, we recommend this product to you. That's a form of machine learning, because what it's doing is learning your buying habits. So it's using massive amounts of data to learn your buying habits, but also what other people like you may buy. So some people also will refer to it as data science. It's very related to data science. So it's really using data and using computers to appear to make a machine look like it thinks.
Thank you. So we have another question, kind of related or from the same student. How do you not get scared about change? You've talked so much about changing and all of that. So how do you not get scared?
Okay. So I do get scared. I'm not going to say I don't get scared. And you can just say, well, because I'm scared, I'm just never going to do anything. Or you can take a big breath and you can say, I'm going to confront this and I'm just going to go forward with it. So I've done scary things. I have not known how I was going to get through some of them, but I think you have to think about, if I don't take a risk on some of these things, will I ever discover and find those things I want to do? I'll use the example of moving to Houston area. I live in Galveston, Texas, which is a beach town. That was scary. I had lived in Dallas for 30 plus years, and I had to leave all my friends, my family, whatever, but I now get to live the dream of living on the beach. And so I do get scared. I'm not going to say I don't. And I can just say, you have to look at what is it you want. I think this goes back to finding your passion, finding what makes you happy, finding what's important. And if you're doing those things, then you will be able to take that step forward.
So you talked about strengths and weaknesses, right? So what advice do you have for those students who have not yet found their strengths?
Okay. So if you have not found your strength, I would say sometimes we have a hard time recognizing our strengths. I went to a seminar once, and they had you write down what were you good at. man, was that uncomfortable. It was like, oh, I don't want to talk about myself and what I'm good at. That's just nasty. So I would say, ask somebody. Ask somebody what they think your strengths are. I think you could ask one of your teachers. I think you could ask one of your colleagues, your friends. Get someone else to help you find your strengths. Think about what you like to do and what you don't like to do, because your strengths may not be the same, but it may help you discover them. When I started college, I was going to be an accountant. I'm going to be an accountant. I hated it. But I had a faculty member, I had to take a computer class. I had a faculty member come up to me and say, I noticed you're not a computer science major and you are getting this stuff. You're doing well in this class. I think you need to change majors. So my case was someone else recognized that strength. I do think that's something we all have to do for each other, is help each other see their strengths. So I would encourage each of us on the call to help other people see their strengths. So I think it's asking others to help you, but then I think on the flip side, we each need to help others see their strengths by saying, gosh, you know, I've noticed you're really good at this.
That's actually very, 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 very good advice. We usually tend to shy away from talking about our accomplishments or the good things that we usually do. So that's really good advice. Thank you.
Sure.
Another question. What advice do you have for those college students who are just going into school this year, like amidst all of this craziness?
Wow. Yeah, this is a very, very different year. And it's a hard year. I won't deny that. My advice, if you're going this year, is to look at it as a year to experience and explore what it is you want to do. I think you're going to be distracted in a different way. So normally when you go to college your first year, you're distracted by all the partying and the social and all of that. So instead, be distracted by exploring different opportunities of careers and of courses and of majors. I think that's something that usually happens in the second year of college. So I think what's going to happen this year is you're going to have to flip those. So you're going to have to do more exploratory work this year and then do your social next year. So I think it's just going to be an opposite this year, because it's just going to be different, and you're going to have to follow the rules to keep everybody safe. And so you're going to have to accept that the socializing has to wait. And so use the time wisely, explore different opportunities.
Awesome. You've seen so many different positions in your career. Like you've said, you've worked part-time, you've worked full-time, and you've gone to school, and you've gone back to school again to get your MBA. So based on all that, what was the biggest pivot that you've ever made in your career?
Absolutely that's an easy one for me, because I left IBM without a job. I had not decided what my next step was going to be. I just knew it was time to make that next step, which was to go back into faculty and teaching, but I had not landed the next job. And so it was a big step. That was the first time that I had ever made a pivot without the next step defined. I had always my pivots had always been, I knew what I was doing next. I had reached a point that I just knew I wanted to go back to teaching college, and I knew that having a PhD, I would be able to find a faculty position somewhere. So that was the biggest pivot. Yep.
Our last question for you. I know we've asked you for a lot of advice, but this will be the last one, I promise. So what advice would you give to anyone, or particularly the youth that are watching this right now?
I would say I'll go back to what I put on my advice slide. Never stop learning. Just always embrace that you can learn something in every situation, even when you fail, even when you go, wow, that was like epic failure. You learned something. So I think that's the best thing that I would say is just keep learning and view everything as you learned something.
That is wonderful advice, and we thank you so much for sharing that with us and sharing your entire journey. Now, for everyone who is participating, I am launching our poll for you to fill out. If you can do that, we would greatly appreciate it. And I also want to make sure that you know to join us next week on August 26th, the same time, 4:00 p.m. Central Time, as we have Jyothi Dugar, who is a cybersecurity executive, holistic wellness specialist, a dance director, an author, and a speaker joining us. We already do have one podcast recorded with her that you can find on our YouTube Learning channel. So please subscribe to that. You can also find all of our previously recorded conversations on our YouTube channel, so check that out. And we hope that you'll join us again. If you do have questions, you can always go to www.cybher.org to find out more information about CybHER. And you can follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So check us out there, and we hope that you will join us again. Thank you for joining us this week. Dr. Straach, thank you so much for joining us. We greatly appreciate your words of wisdom.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was great to be here.
Okay, goodbye, everybody.